I just saw a video about dumpster diving, and I have things to say. I used to be a dumpster diver, or a freegan, if that's a term, I guess. The only good thing about that is it made it so that the food would actually be edible when it got thrown in the trash unnecessarily, like so much food in the United States. So I'm going to tell my own personal stories with this in a second. But before, please follow my Patreon. That's where I share a lot more personal stories, and I do lives and all this stuff, and it's just a fun place to be. There's a link in the caption. Anyway, I think that dumpster diving, and as gross as it sounds, there is a way to do it that is not disgusting. I think it is a perfect reminder of just because something is illegal doesn't mean it's immoral. In fact, I mean, come on, look at history. Look at the U.S. history. I mean, most of the laws in the U.S. history of things that were legal were so morally wrong and reprehensible. I mean, and still, so legal and does not equate moral. I mean, sometimes, like not being able to marry children, for instance, although they can get around that, especially if they're in the church and they have their parents' permission. So that still happens in the U.S. Child brides, California, it's still legal. They literally did a podcast about that in France, talking about that. Not that France doesn't have its own issues around that and so many other things. Let's get back to dumpster diving. So one thing that my mutual said, I just want to repeat this before I get into any of my own stuff because I did not know this. She worked at a grocery store, and she said that if you get something, especially something like dairy or just something that's going to expire, and you change your mind and you don't go back and put it in the place that it should go, they don't know how long it's been sitting there and they have to throw it away. So your own personal part in cutting back on the waste of food, especially in a world where so many people are starving, especially in a world where so many children and human beings are starving in Palestine and other places, like on purpose, thanks to our government too. Now is the time to, always is the time to do every single little thing we can to not create more of this mass waste. And she was saying that if you take something and you don't, like, if you put a gallon of milk somewhere that's not right back on the shelf, then they're going to throw it away. I didn't know that, but it makes sense because they don't know how long it's been sitting there. It could be there for 5 minutes or it could have been there for 5 hours, so they're going to throw it away. So please, if you take something back, especially something that's perishable, take it directly back because they're going to have to throw it away. And think of all like the animals that died to make that meat, or to make that thing what it is. She talked about how she had to throw away like all these rotisserie chickens, and that they were allowed to take 2 home each, the people who worked there, but the rest had to be thrown away. In what world does that make sense? So I actually used to try to fight against this when I worked in the film industry in craft services, and I'm going to share more about that in a minute. But this thing of like, no, you have to throw it away. Why couldn't they all just take 10 home and feed their family and their neighbors? Like the idea that it has to go in the trash. But the employees can have it, but only 2 is so crazy, right? So the video that she stitched was this guy who went into a dumpster, and there was all these trash bags. So it was all this stuff was in a trash bag with just this stuff. And there was no garbage juice or anything. Look at this. Look at these berries. Like bags of berries that are not rotten. Pineapple, lettuce. Oh, none of that lettuce is like slimy at all. Like, look at all this stuff. He found boxes of food. While he was doing this, some dude who works there came out and was like, this dumpster's private property. Look at this. Look at all this food he has. It's supposed to be here. Look, even Fritos. Do those ever go bad? If you put those in a time capsule and buried them, somebody 200 years later would probably pull them out and they are just the same. Like, come on, why on earth are they throwing away Fritos with all those preservatives? You're trespassing, and we can have you trespass from the property. I mean, look, mushrooms. And he's like, yeah, but it's garbage. And what do you think anybody might want this? But we tried to have things to take it. And, it's just not worth it because it's not, God. So that was his personal, like, caught on camera version of that. So this actually happened to one of my friends. I wish I could tell you who it was, because I'm sure, like, I'm like not famous Kevin Bacon. I swear to God, I seem to know so many people that I know in the most random ways. I wish I could say his name, but I don't like to break anonymity of my friends. Anyway, he is a notorious van lifer, dumpster diver. I think he still lives in his van. I lived in my truck for 5 years, and that was back in like 2001 to 2006. And then I moved back in it again when I was like sick of New York and needed a break. Anyway, he was a master dumpster diver. Now, sometimes he would get stuff where I'm like, I really need you to pay more attention to expiration date. Also, use more ice in your coolers, bro. For anyone new here, I lived like this for many years. You know, I was an outdoor guide, like climber, you know, just kind of used to living on, well, I mean, we didn't get paid enough money to actually pay rent. So that's one reason why we were all living in our cars. That's not an actual cigarette. I'm making fun of French climbers and pretending to smoke a cigarette, which is so hilarious that it somehow ended up in France. But yeah, they smoke here between climbs. Not all of them. You know, I am used to like a rustic, no plumbing, no running water, no like freezing, and a little in New Mexico. This was my bathroom when I did actually live in a trailer instead of my truck. Toilet seat, and this is the bucket you pooped in, and then I had to carry the bucket. So I like this is my world. This like minimalist hippie crap, outdoor whatever. And even when I lived in New York, this is where I lived. A cubicle made out of sheets and a piece of plywood I found on the ground. I mean, you know, I have always managed to live a really rich life with like, I don't know, I'm a scrappy. I mean, I come from, you know, I'm white, was raised middle class, able-bodied, like all of cishet. I have all kinds of privileges. I don't want to diminish those. But anyway, I'm just like, I was raised by a single mom and I'm a penny pension. So I know how to, and I worked as a survival guide and was literally on a National Geographic show as a professional survivor. Anyway, you're in that world, you cook, you do, I mean, we do laundry, we hang it like this. We cook like this. This is when I had to cook for like hundreds of teenagers from LA, like millionaires. We're all living in our cars doing this, and we're like cooking for Hollywood kid. Anyway, this contrast was fascinating. You know, I cook outdoors a lot. Even when I moved to LA and was not working this anymore, I was a waitress instead, trying to be a storyteller and write in places like Red Rocks in Las Vegas. We're dumpster diving still, right? Look at all this rotisserie chicken, all this stuff. This is good food. Again, you have to be very careful, but you would not believe how much stuff people throw away and have to throw away. Before I get into like how I did that when I worked in the movies to fight back against waste, because the film industry is one of the most wasteful industries I have ever seen in my life. Like, just the food, not to mention the art department and all the things, and Christopher Nolan being one of the biggest offenders in terms of carbon footprints. I'll just plant a whole cornfield so I can have one scene of my truck driving through it for stupid whatever, Instella or whatever. I'll just blow up something for a movie about a white man whose moral dilemma about an atomic bomb and go, re-traumatize that entire town in New Mexico where they already were poisoned by, okay. Anyway, I've already talked about that. But when my buddy went to that Trader Joe's one day, he went all the time, he got busted by an employee. You know, it was after hours, he thought everybody was gone, and this one guy comes out there and sees him taking food, and you know what his first instinct was? Not, oh, this guy's probably hungry if he's willing to eat out of the trash. Instead, was violently, no! So for instance, he came out there, he's like, what are you doing? You know, and especially, you know, a lot of us white people love to be the police of everybody. And so he was like, you can't do that. And my friend was like, it's trash. You threw it out, so you don't want it. And he was like, but it's our trash. Can you imagine the mindset of someone who works for a grocery store being so possessive of their own trash? We know it's not really about that. But this is why, like, again, just because something is like against the rules doesn't mean it's wrong. Like, that's how indoctrinated we are into all these systems. White supremacy culture, capitalism, patriarchy, all of them, they all tie together, and they are destroying the planet, making these a few people rich, and while people are starving. So my friend was like, he's a really funny dude, very sarcastic. And he was like, why do you care so much? It's literally trash. I'm doing you a favor. I'm removing it for you. And he was like, no. And they fought and fought and fought. Finally, my friend was like, okay, fine. So he went away, and then he kind of like, I don't know, just sat in his van somewhere else for like an hour, thinking this dude would finally get off work and go. So he came back and went right back to trying to take some trash. And the guy had been waiting. Imagine the amount of like internalized policeman or policewoman. There's a reason why Karen is a thing, because we definitely have that. Imagine being like, instead of going home or just pretending to not see it so someone can eat food, he came back out there and was like, I told you, and like totally lost his stuff, came over and took a knife and slashed all the bags open so that garbage juice would infiltrate all of this fresh food. Good food, edible food that was not anywhere near being rotted, but because of these like vague, or not vague, but like these rules around food and how, and I understand they're supposed to protect us, but like, come on, let people eat trash, right? And I know, because in the US there's lawsuits and but like, just turn your back to it, right? And so the only thing that my friend came home with that day, because everything else was like ruined, but he had already taken, was like, I don't know, of some I forget what all it was, but all of us woke up with a red rose on our windshield. Like 15 cars all had, and he was like, I just wanted to give everybody a fun. Can you imagine someone being so angry about someone having something for free that was literally worthless in their eyes, that they don't want not only to be fed, but just beauty? Why are roses in the trash? This rose was like, hadn't bloomed yet. It was still, anyway, this is the mentality. This is indoctrination. This is not just like a crazy man. This is like a system of belief that is so attached to power and hierarchies, and like, this is how we do it, without really thinking about things. It's a dehumanization of ourselves and others, right? So when I worked in the film industry, one way that I tried to push back against these very wasteful systems is, so when I worked craft services on films sometimes, and then I got into the art department, and then the 2008 strike happened, and all like this industry shut down, and I couldn't get work anymore, so I had to go into commercials, and I went back to craft services because I couldn't find work in the art department because I wasn't in the union, right? And so craft service doesn't even have a union, so we just get screwed all the time. But at least that was consistent work. And so I would always have all this leftover food. Now, some of it I'm not going to just give away because maybe, it's been sitting out all day, it needs to go in the trash. Or I wish if I had chickens when I lived in New York, I would have given it to chickens, but I didn't. It's like hard to know where you could, I don't want to give food away that is like not safe, right? But then I would have I had a budget of like several $100s a day. And I don't like, in my mind, why would I I'm not throwing this away. I'm not rolling it over to the next project, because each production depends on me spending a certain amount for that crew. And if I spend less to make myself look better, look what a great employee I made. Look how I cut costs. Then I am screwing myself over in terms of budgets for the next time, and I'm screwing over any other craft service, because they're like, well, Melanie Hamlet did it on a lower budget, because Melanie Hamlet took all this extra food and kept it in her house, like not even house, her apartment, which no, I'm not doing that. I have room for that. I have a tiny apartment in New York, no way. So what I started to realize is that instead of wasting stuff, and instead of benefiting the film industry people and their dumb budgets, was that they would spend all this money on food and pay me pennies compared to how long I was working and how hard I was working. So don't even get me started on their labor issues there. But even with unions, even union people get exploited, as we've seen, and unalive because of these reckless directors who are almost always men who have terrible judgment and aren't emotionally intelligent should never lead a crew. Anyway, Bradley Cooper and your ableism with no chairs. Anyway, so every time I finished, I would take a car home on the budget of the film industry because that was given to me. I was like, I need to get my single mom mentality out of my mind. I mean, I'm not a single mom, but again, I was raised by a single mom. So I'm like always about cutting costs, pinching pennies, making something stretch, right? And I was like, I need to let her go, okay? Penny pinching, approval seeking. Melanie needs to go in the trash. And I need to be with the lawyer. You know, I talk about the lawyer. What is best for Melanie and what's best for the community, right? Instead of what's best for the people who exploit other people, right? And so I take a car ride home, and instead of being like, I know that it's like can be offensive to ask, you know, my driver, do you want free food? As if it's a handout. That can be so insulting. So I just kind of would frame it as like, hey, I have all this extra food. It's all like, you know, there's granola bars, there's bread, there's all this stuff. It literally bought it yesterday. I don't know it. Do you know anybody who could use this or who would want it? Because it's really good quality food. Some of it's organic, but the film industry doesn't want it. And I basically would frame it because I'm a woman and I'm really good at, you know, all women especially know how to manipulate men to get what we want because we have to. Now, I am not in the mindset of wanting to live that way, but manipulation can be used as a superpower or it can be used as for evil. And I choose to use it as a superpower. So a lot of times I'd have male drivers and I just kind of like frame it as like, help me, instead of like, do you need free food? Because that's insulting. And they probably don't need free food or whatever. But I just was like, I don't know what to do all this. Do you want are you interested in this? Because this is so much and it's heavy and and they'd be like, yeah. And they'd be so happy to take all this food off my hands because most of them have kids and they're not getting paid very well to have a bunch of free organic food. Maybe they don't need it. Maybe they don't want it. But like some of them were very excited to have all this free food, right? And so I just wanted to I know people could benefit from the film industry's excessive waste, right? And then when Occupy Wall Street happened, this is me down in Occupy Wall Street. On my days off, I was down there. On my free time off, I was down there. And what I realized, because they had a whole kitchen set up, you know, they had tent cities, they had libraries, they had a first aid station, they had, you know, that's why I really got like a crash course in activism and you know, just and educate. This is like my baby activism days. I really didn't know anything about it, but I learned so much from being down there. I've told y'all how like a magazine wanted me to write about women going down there, a women's magazine. I told that story a few weeks ago about a women's magazine that wanted me to go down there and get a story about women going to Occupy Wall Street to meet husbands. As if any woman was down there doing that. God. I'm telling you, women uphold the page. We are the foot soldiers for all these systems, right? Especially my women who look like me. So I was down there a lot, learned so much. I just felt, because I mean, it didn't like, there was a lot of change that happened from this, even though the police came in and did exactly what they did at the Free Palestine encampments, right? They just came in, especially at dark, and just trashed everything, destroyed all the property. I was not there the night they did that. And from what I've seen, those encampments had all these like beautiful areas with like music and art and learning. And, you know, it wasn't like, it was more like, hey, we are together here making a difference for something we believe in, fighting back, right? So I would go down on my days off, I'd go down to Occupy Wall Street, and I would, on the days that I was not off, but after I got off of the job, I would roll down in my like rented minivan for being a crafty and just drop off. I'd be like, hey, I got a van full of food. Y'all need it for the kitchen? They're like, yeah, right? And they would go, and then they would cook a lot of this food that was perfectly good for all the people down there for free dinner. And so that was a really good lesson for me in that, you know, people can all do the part that they specifically can do, you know? I had to, on my days off, I could go down there, but on my days where I had to work, I'm working like at least 12-hour days. Whenever you work on set, the minimum, well, on commercials, the minimum is 10. Or you're supposed to be between 10 and 12. And on film and TV, it's usually 12. but whatever. A lot of times you're working 12 to 16 hour days, right? Because at 16 hours, then it's considered a double day. So many of these directors and producers would make you work until 15 hours and 45 minutes. And then they'd be like, sorry, it's not a double day. Anyway, so I started to realize that, that I don't ever want to feel hopeless about things. If I'm hopeless about things, then I'm not going to do anything. And I'm like, well, we all just die. What's the point? I don't like feeling that way. I mean, I do feel powerless in a lot of things, but then I'm like, what can I do, right? And so with that stuff, I was like, oh, I have access to free food. I'm going to send it there, right? There's some people who are maybe unemployed right now or don't work as many hours, so they're down there on the ground doing the things, and I'm just swooping by on my way off and just like giving boxes of food to feed those people down there. And other people would call in pizzas and have like dozens of pizzas delivered to the people down there occupying. So anyway, this dumpster diving stuff, I just looked into it here in France because I was kind of curious about it. Because I'm just talking about the US mostly because that was my experience doing it there. I know the US a lot more and lived there for most of my adult life. But I do know that there are bakeries around here. There's an app. I forget what it's called. I can't use it on my phone because my phone's from the US and Apple won't let me download it. But my husband has it on his phone because he's French and got his here. And you go through and they sell day old stuff or whatever where you just bought for €2. You get a whole bag of things. You don't know what it is. It's like croissants and all kinds of pastries and stuff. Like they do that with all kinds of places. Well, they just have a bag of this stuff, pretty cheap. Just so we don't have to throw it away. You know what you're getting. You know it's not fresh, but it's not bad either. And then I also looked up this, dumpster diving in France, the ultimate guide. So like a lot of things in France, the act of dumpster diving is not illegal or not legal, but also widely accepted. There's a lot of rules here that it's illegal, but they don't do anything. They don't do anything depending on the color of your skin, of course. But the way that there are things that are kind of illegal and illegal, and then no one cares. I'm always trying to figure out what is what's real and what's people whatever. I guess it's called poubelle chasse or bin hunting. And even though it's not explicitly illegal, they do have private law, private property, blah, blah, blah. So I'm curious what it's like wherever y'all live, wherever you are. I know people follow me from all over the world. And I just know, it's not just so many things in the US. It's not like those things don't exist in other places, but it's such a police state. It's such a extremely violent country, and everything is so extreme there. So of course, even taking trash from someone is met with violence, right? And either destroying it or threatening to call the police or actually calling the police. And then of course, depending on the color of your skin, and the lighter it is, the less likely the police will be called and brutalize you for taking someone's trash off their hands. Anyway, I'm always trying to figure out ways that I can be useful and what's working and what's not. I try to do things in my community because I don't want all my life to be online. And I don't know, man. There's so many little ways. And I thought, even if it's just the grocery store thing, because people watching me probably do not work in the film industry as a craft service or, whatever. That's the bare minimum. If you're not already doing this, when you pick up something in the grocery store, put it back exactly where you found it, especially if it's perishable, or it will directly go into the trash, most likely. Therefore, all of the resources, the water, the oil to get that from that place to that place, the animal that may have died doing that, all of that went into creating that thing was a complete waste. If the supermarket itself is not going to be, it might throw it away anyway, but don't make that easier for them. So I don't know. This is not my usual content, but I do have a lot of experience with this, and I thought I'd share this little story. Because hopelessness and feeling paralyzed by overwhelm of all the things wrong doesn't really make me motivated or want to do anything. And that's exactly what rich people want. So I am trying to always figure out ways in my daily life as best I can. And it's a very personal thing. What you can do is what someone else can't do, and to just not contribute to this waste and this destruction of the planet. And I'm still probably making tons of mistakes all the time and being very wasteful. I know I am. And I have, an iPhone. And now that I know what happened to get that, and all of the people exploited to get the cobalt and all this crap, I'm like, okay, well, I have one. But I, shouldn't upgrade for a very long time. Whatever. I don't know if this is helpful. Thanks for being here. Love to hear your opinions. Like, comment, share stories. If you're not already following my Patreon or whatever. And make sure you have notifications set if you want to see my stuff, and that you're actually subscribed, because a lot of people get unsubscribed without them knowing it. Oh, there he goes. Speaking of rotisserie chicken, he just rolled over like one. Have a great day. Thanks for being here. Et voila!